How does it feel to be adopted? What does it mean to search for your origins? Adoption is a life-altering experience for everyone involved, but for adoptees, the question of identity is never simple. It's a lifelong journey shaped by mystery, longing, and sometimes profound discoveries. I've spent the last 8 years listening to over 250 adopted people from all walks of life and around the world who share their adoption stories. People who lived through, thrived, and merely survived adoption, many of whom dared to search for their biological roots. Some found long-lost family. Others uncovered unexpected truths. Still others found no answers at all. But all of them shared raw, unfiltered stories of resilience, identity, and self-discovery. Now, their voices come together in my new book, The Adoptee Experience. Inside the cover, you'll find what adoptees experience in their adoptive families, why so many of us feel compelled to search, and the deep emotions that drive us. How fantasies about birth parents shape our expectations before adoption reunion. The role of DNA testing, access to records, and other tools that impact adoptee searches, and the emotional roller coaster of attempting adoption reunions to reconcile the past, whether the journey brings joy, heartbreak, or something in between. The Adoptee Experience isn't just a book, it's a reflection of what it really means to be adopted. If you've ever wondered about your own identity, or you want to understand the adoptee journey, this book is for you. Please take a moment to visit whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience. Again, whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience to stay up to date on the book's progress.
She's now been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, so it's like time is of the essence that we heal these relationship patterns. And again, it's just like the fear of losing her now. It's like I've had something so good my whole life that I wasn't grateful for. Because you're told all the time, are you grateful? Are you grateful? And it's just, you're so mad about hearing this, but then to come to this point of like, wow, I really am.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and you're about to meet Christy, who called me from Utah. Christy was deeply loved by her adoptive parents, who prayed she would be delivered to them. But throughout childhood, she was unable to shake the feeling of being abandoned. In reunion, Christy heard the hard truth of her conception, self-medicated to escape her feelings, then recovered to center herself in motherhood. Christy shared the importance of telling our stories as another adoptee and journeymate did for her. This is Christy's journey. Christy and I met in Washington, D.C. at the Adoption, The Making of Me live event with Louise Brown and Sarah Reinhardt. We were put in touch with each other by her buddy, Crystal Park, one day before the conversation you're about to hear. I was honored to hear that the day of our chat was a special anniversary for Christy along her journey, which she'll talk about a little later. Going back to her beginning, Christy was adopted in Utah. Her parents had been married for 7 years with no preventative measures for getting pregnant along the way, but it just wouldn't happen. She said her parents' heartache over their inability to conceive became the pain of their close friends as well.
My parents are very beloved by their community, so I think their heartache became a lot of their friends' heartaches. And my mom talked about that, like just seeing people conceive all the time and like how hard it was for her. I think especially within religion, there's like a question of like worthiness, like why is God not blessing me with a baby or what have I done? When it becomes very layered.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And so there's just like a lot they were feeling. They would take my cousins. I have some older male cousins that they would take on the weekends, kind of like loosely like co-parenting with my uncle and aunt just because they wanted to be parents so bad. So they would take them and go do things with them and have them sleep at their house and stuff. And so my adoptive uncle lived near my biological mom.
Really?
And so when she conceived with my particular story, she chose not to parent me. And so she went to him being an attorney, and just said, I need to find a family for this baby. And so it wasn't done through an agency or through anything. And he didn't tell her, like, oh, like immediately he was like, oh, my sister, like she's been
Really?
trying to conceive. And so it was really interesting because most people do have those books where they go through and they painstakingly decide where they want to place their child. And my mom knew nothing. My
Hmm.
biological mom didn't ask any questions, just literally just handed me over.
That's crazy.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, it makes me feel a certain way about it. And I mean, I'm really fortunate I went to a safe home.
Yeah.
Had I
How
been
does it
raised,
make you feel to hear that piece of your story?
it's hard. I mean, because it's like there's so much complication in adoption because of the price. We all know, like, it's way more than it needs to be when it's concerning just like placing a child in a family that they need a family. And I totally am in agreement with the community where we need to reframe it where this is a child seeking a family, not a family building tool trying to find a child.
Yeah.
And I think for in my scenario, I can see it was both. I was definitely placed in a family where I was safe, I was protected, I was cherished. My parents were very attentive. My dad would lay in bed with me at night and tickle my face to put me to sleep and be like, well, what do you want to be tonight? Do you want to be a princess? Do you want to be a clown? And he'd be like, okay, now I'm putting on your blush. Now I'm doing this to you. And he would just touch my face and tickle me until I fell asleep. My adoptive mom took infant massage classes because she wanted to try to bond with me.
What?
But even in all of that, there was like an inability to feel safe and bond despite their efforts. Just the safety of my body, I think, was mistrusting of them leaving. Like
What
you already lost this mom, and even though they're in front of you and you feel so much love, it's like, this is gonna leave. Just this constant fear of
what did that look like then for you? You seem to be describing a certain phenomenon of this fear of abandonment. How did that manifest for you?
very clingy. Like all of my photos, when you see me as a child, my dad even mentioned to me one time, he's, if you notice, you're always holding on to my arm. Like I was either on his lap or I mean, literally physically clinging to him. And I felt a lot of safety with my adoptive dad. My adopted mom is beautiful and I love her and we've worked really hard on our relationship. But I think because she was the mom and the wound was with the mom, there was just a lot of layered feelings there that were really difficult for us both to get through. And she didn't understand it because the generation that I was adopted in and many others before me, it's that blank slate theory, which they really truly believe. And so then when you're not behaving or responding in a way that feels organic to their DNA, it becomes like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with them? And it's pathologized. And so as a young child, I just had a lot of anxiety, a lot of ADHD qualities, which I still have.
Mm.
And so really young, like second grade, I was put on medication. And instead of having me not be in those appointments, I was in those appointment rooms with the doctors and my parents. And so I would listen to all the things of, well, she's doing this and this. And like, how do we get her to stop? And I would just sit there and feel broken. I'm all wrong. I'm behaving wrong. I'm responding wrong. My mom would put my medicine in the little marshmallow in my lunchbox for me so nobody knew I was taking medication throughout the school day.
Wow.
And I just remember there was like a lot of feelings attached to that medicine of like brokenness,
You're not
which
the
was really
first
hard.
person I've heard say the word broken. Just listening to a guy named Fred's story, and he was a late discovery adoptee, and he described this similar kind of thing of being pulled away from the things that he was interested in to do the things that his parents thought he should be doing. He's in arts and they were pushing him towards athletics. And he said the same thing, that he felt broken, like he was doing something wrong. When, as you've alluded to, the reality is you've got a certain set of genetics and your family has a certain set of genetics and they don't match up. And
Mhm.
so you end up feeling, even though you feel like you're part of the family, you feel like you're broken. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. I just think it goes to that misattunement that I think I know I have felt my entire life, even with education and with trying. My parents, they're in their 70s and they're still having these conversations with me, which I'm so grateful for. Like, not a lot of
Mhm.
people have the opportunity to ask their parents certain things when they do come out of the fog and have the bravery to go, wait, what about this? Sometimes those times have passed. And so I'm fortunate enough that I still can ask them those questions and they are being so kind and attentive to me to give me the answers. But then it just highlights for me, like, how long it took for that to happen and just the feeling of isolation I always felt. Because it's like, as much as I express that, it's like almost a feeling of like, we don't want you to feel that. So it's like, no, 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 that's not true. We were always here. We were, and it's, well, yes, like in many ways, yes. But in a lot of ways, no, because in my story, I was the only child out of six that was placed for adoption. I was right in the middle.
Wow.
And then I'm the only child that was adopted into my family. So my parents adopted me. And then within 4 months, my mom was pregnant, both moms. I have a brother on my adopted side and my biological side, both that were conceived 4 months after me.
Wow.
And my parents have 3 biological sons after that too. And so I think it goes, I mean, it was both like, I'm the only one adopted and I'm the only girl. So the responses to me were different. And I could
Mm.
never quite figure out what was adoption, what was gender, what was what. And it just always felt different to me.
Do me a favor, just clarify for me here because we've jumped a little bit back and forth between your biological and your adopted family. I just want to make sure I have everybody clear. You've already alluded to your biological mother. She had 2 kids and then you were born. You were adopted out. And did you say that she continued to have children
Mhm.
thereafter?
When she placed me, she told me that she went home with her husband and she literally said, "Get me pregnant now." She
Wow.
was like she says she was grieving placing me, but she replaced me really quickly and
Interesting.
just kind of continued her life and had
And
another
then
baby.
in your adoptive family, you were the only child or were there children over in your adoptive
I was
family?
the oldest, so they had no children, adopted me, and then 4 months later conceived their first biological kid, and they had 2 more after that. So they have 3 sons.
So your adoptive family has 3 sons who
Mhm.
are younger than you. You are the oldest.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, that's super helpful. Thanks for taking a moment to clarify that. That's really fascinating. So are there all boys on the biological side as well?
No, so there was a boy, a girl, then me as a girl, and then
Okay.
a boy underneath me, and then 2 more girls.
Okay. I was just trying to understand. There was a point where it sounded like you were saying there was all boys and you were the only girl. And it sounds like you were referring to your
My
adopted.
adopted family. Yeah,
Yeah, got
yeah,
you. Thanks. That's really helpful.
yeah.
So tell me about your life in your adoptive family. You're the oldest girl. You are clingy, attached, but they're loving. What was the family dynamic like? You've said that there was some blank slate mentality. They thought that you were going to be kind of like them,
Mhm,
but they're your brothers are going to be very much like them as their
mhm.
genetics. So how was the dynamic in your family in terms of you being the lone adoptee?
It was a lot of fun. My parents we have a picture of my parents when they were 5 holding hands, like, they were neighbors growing up, and so they've loved each other their entire life. It was very stable, a lot of fun. My dad loves to make people laugh,
Mm.
and so it was very common to wake up on a Saturday morning listening to my parents just, like, roaring and laughter in their bedroom, and so we would all come running in like, "What's funny? What happened?" And we'd all kind of end up in their bed. But it's just like all the micro ways that you feel othered. Like my brothers would sit around my mom and I mean, little things, I bring it up often, but I remember my brother saying, "What did you crave when you were pregnant with me?" And she would go into stories. She would start telling them, and I would get so caught up in it. Like I would forget so often that I was adopted when I was younger. And then it's like, then it was with me forever. But I would go, "Oh, yeah, what about?" And I'd stop because I'd see a look on her face and I'd be like, "Oh, that's right." And I just this awareness again of, wait, I don't have those stories. I don't have any of that. And so we really relied on the story of like when they got me, what a celebration it was. I was born on a holiday in Utah.
Oh, really?
And so it's similar to the 4th of July. They do fireworks, they do parades, they do whatever. And so until I was 7, I believed that this celebration was for me, for
Oh,
finally being
really? That's
adopted,
really
because that's what
cute.
I was told. And so I really did think, oh, it's because I was adopted. Like everybody just kind of celebrates me today. And then I remember meeting another girl whose birthday was the same day. And she's, "Oh, my parents told me that too." And I was like, "Wait, what?" I thought I
You're like,
celebrated
"Oh,
something
man,
great. But it
that's
just was a
crazy."
common story for people who were born on that day here, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really fun, but I could see how if you're biological to your child, it's just a fun story to tell, and then you
Yeah.
figure out it's like Santa Claus. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no real Santa Claus, but
Yeah.
for an adoptee to hear
Devastating.
that, it's a lot deeper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. But I think that's true. I mean, the way when they adopted me, it was a celebration. Like their entire community accepted me with open arms. I did grow up, like I said, in a very safe environment where I did feel like I had many parents. Like I had
great.
many of my friends' parents felt close to me and very loving to me. And looking back, I think it's just that affection and the affinity they had for my parents and watching the struggle. And even as they saw me struggle through life, just a lot of compassion and bandwidth for
Mhm.
that I really, after leaving my parents' home, really have never quite been able to find again.
Really?
I
Yeah.
realized, like, what an idyllic little pocket of the world I kinda grew up in with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so good foundational roots.
Can you tell me, and I understand if you don't necessarily wanna go into it, but you've mentioned the church and the religious pressure on them to produce a family
Mhm.
biologically. And I know that you come from, at least in your background, a specific kind of religion. Do you want to talk a little bit about your family's engagement with religion at all and how that impacted you? Because you told me over text that you
Yeah,
have left
I
that
was
church. So I'm
deeply impactful in my life. So it impacted both sides of my family. My biological mother didn't choose to look into whoever I was being adopted into because there is such a sense of safety within the LDS religion. If you're temple worthy, there's certain requirements you need to be living by to be able to attend the temple and have that.
and
And
what is
so
the temple?
the temple is where they go to worship. It's different than a regular building. They go for Sunday service. So a temple, you have to obey the word of wisdom, which is like how you eat and drink and the way you navigate in the world, your level of honesty, if you're attending church every week, if you're paying your tithing, like there's a whole list of things you have to go through in an interview to be able to obtain a recommendation to attend.
And
And so
this
when
is
my birth mom placed me, that's the only thing she said is, I want her to be sealed in the temple. I want them to be able to go to the temple. And so in her mind, it felt like that checked all the boxes. She didn't have to look into anything further. If it was that type of family, I would be good.
God.
Yeah.
So you live in Utah. You're
Yeah.
referring to the Mormon Church, a Church
Yeah.
of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
I see. Gotcha. LDS.
Yeah.
And so how did religion play into your family life then? You said it was very impactful. Tell me how.
Yeah. Well, so like my adoptive parents, them on the flip side of that is they felt like that was the biggest blessing they had been given. And my parents, all those years before that, were praying. It's going to make me emotional. Sorry if I get emotional through this. They had been praying and wanting a child so badly. And so when I came, they had promised in their prayers, like, we'll do anything. We'd do anything for a child. So it's very common in the Mormon religion to give people callings. They're not paid. They just, they usher callings and give callings to people where you serve in your community. And they have never denied a calling. My parents have had a lot of really high callings that have demanded a lot of their time. At times they would be gone from my life for several years out of the country and doing things. And as an adoptee, I would process that as like a grief and a mourning and a loss. And I didn't even have the words to put that together at the time. But knowing that was a promise they made because of me. Like they told me that a lot growing up. Like we told God we would do anything if we had a baby. And so then once they received me, anything the church asked of them, it was like 100% we'll do anything you ask.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a beautiful devotion. But for me, my experience was really hard because I feel like I said, my dad was so attentive and so beautiful. We had this really strong nuclear family. And then when I was about 7 or 8, he got some of those higher callings that were demanding more of his time. And he still tried to sacrifice to have time with us every night. He was home for dinner every night at the same time. Like he was very consistent, but then he would be gone the rest of the night. And he wasn't putting me to bed anymore. He was in our community serving and doing things. And then unfortunately for my mom and I, it became really stressful because then she was the one putting me to bed. And I had that close bond with my dad. And unfortunately, I had a hard time in school with my ADHD and other things. And so she ended up being the person with obesity and doing homework. And it just felt like a lot of correction. Like a lot of those, stop doing that. Why are you doing this? And just constantly trying to navigate and figure out. And so I took that and understood that as I'm all wrong. Like I just can't do enough right here. I'm always in trouble. And that's not how they perceived me at all, but that's how I experienced it. And so the church was really, it was both a blessing and a struggle for me because like I said, I had that level of safety and community, which I'm so grateful for. My dad was LDS mission president, so I spent 3 years in Brazil in my teenage years, which was transformational for me. It's quite a legacy in his family. My dad himself grew up when he was like 8 to 11 in Brazil because his dad was doing a similar calling. He went back when he was 19 to 21, and then he went back with us. So he's gone back since I've been an adult. So my dad spent like 15 years of his life living in Brazil almost. And
Wow.
my grandpa served 5 missions down there. So when we got that calling, I was thrilled. My brothers were sad. They didn't want to leave. And I was like, heck yeah, let's go. I'm so excited. And that was probably the first time in my life I can remember feeling full acceptance. Like,
Really? Why do you say that?
just the Brazilian culture, it was just, I don't know. They are the most phenomenal people, which many cultures are. But I think I felt connected to ancestors being there because of the legacy of service. I think I felt connected to younger versions of my dad that maybe I wasn't able to see because it just came out of him like this joyfulness, which he always was fun. He always made us laugh.
Yeah.
But we had more time with him because of what the calling was. We were much closer again because we weren't really looking for friends outwardly. We didn't know the language quite well yet. So it was just us again. And I think it was the first time that I was able to really tap into my own intuition because growing up in a high control religion, it's just kind of told to you and prescribed to you that things happen a certain way. And that wasn't the way I was experiencing them in my body. And so for me, I mean, I think as an adoptees, we always live in duality, right? And it's just, as I'm saying and trying to find the words to say what I'm feeling, everything externally is being told to me it's a certain way, and that wasn't how I was feeling it. And so I took that external truth as, well, I must be wrong. And so I'll take
So,
that as my truth.
a couple of things. One, you've said that your parents were so invested in having a child that they committed to the church that they would do anything if
Well,
they
to
were
God, they
yeah,
felt like to God, but for them
they
was the church as well. Yeah.
so they made a pledge to God that they would do anything if they were blessed with the presence of a child and you came along. And so the church, as it's set up, will call on people to do things. And because they had made this commitment to God, they did everything that
Mhm.
they were called to do. And as an adopted person, that calling would take them away from you. And you've already alluded to this clinginess and emotional. And so there they are going off to serve what they
Mhm.
have committed to prior to your arrival, but it still felt like the abandonment potentially that you were feeling. And
Yeah.
then you've also said that the church was telling you how the world works, but you're not actually feeling that prescribed way that the world works. You're
Mm.
hearing what is said to you, but you're actually seeing things are different. Can you describe a little bit more what that meant?
Well, I think it connects with and goes down the same vein, but much deeper because it's so layered. But it's similar to how you're feeling that disconnection, you're feeling that rejection from your original mother. And people are being like, "Oh, you're so blessed. Are you so grateful?" And so it doesn't jive where you're like, people are saying I should feel a certain way, but my body is like, that's not, and yes, I do, but that's not the underlying feeling I'm constantly having. I feel like religion as a whole, if you were to wrap it up in a bow, that's what it was like. It was like things constantly told to me, here's how it's supposed to be. And my internal experience never mirrored that.
I see.
And so Brazil for me was so pivotal because that was the first time I was able to kind of tap into my intuition where as adoptees, we can read the room. We learn really young to be hyper attuned, to be empaths, to read somebody mad at me was our body language saying, how do I find safety?
Mm.
And navigating that country where I don't know the language, I don't know what's going on. I had to use those skills to read the room and like use hand motions and a lot of how do you say this? How do you say that as you're learning the language from people? And Brazilians just had so much time,
Mm.
so much patience with me. I mean, I've experienced here in the United States where I've been among people where it's like you'll go through a drive-through and somebody doesn't speak English well, and people are like, "Gosh, learn the language. You're in America." And I'm like, "That's wild," because I didn't know this language in this other country, and they had so much space for me. They were so
Mhm.
kind as I was learning their language, and
Yeah.
they seemed so honored that I was trying to learn their language.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I just think it helped me learn a lot of nonverbal things. Again, a lot of how I was always seen, I felt like as too much. And I talk really fast and people couldn't
Mhm.
understand me. And we went to Brazil and everybody spoke fast. Everybody speaks with their hands. Everybody's really energetic. And it was just like, oh, I fit in here.
Oh,
Nothing
yes.
fell off. And it just gave me a sense of belonging. So although I have Portuguese in my DNA, now that I've done my testing, I don't have Brazilian. It's like I just think it's a beautiful connection where it's like my ancestors did speak that language. I was placed in a family where I learned that language,
That is
was
cool.
able to have the blessing of going to that culture and them just fully embracing me.
Christy's family lived in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a huge city, but a metropolis that is enveloped by nature. When you look at photos of Rio, you usually see shots of the famous mountaintop statue of Christ the Redeemer looking down upon the city. But if you look more closely, you'll see that Rio is not a concrete jungle like New York City. It is infused and surrounded by lush greens. It was there that Christy developed her love for houseplants that have been part of her healing and, she says, part of her spirituality today. That era from 13 to 16 years old was huge developmentally, where she learned the language and nature of Brazil, gaining an affinity and a feeling of safety among the people. She said her parents' calling as part of the LDS Church was high demand in Brazil too. So they hired a nanny who provided live-in childcare and maid services, in essence, acting as a second mother to Christy and her brother. The woman, named Adalia, never had children of her own, so Christy and her brother were like her own children as their mother traveled for the calling with their father.
She very much was like our Brazilian mom. And my mom was able at that point to travel with my dad for some of the things he needed to do. And it was just us at home with this woman, Idalia. And again, it was a really beautiful connection for me.
Yeah.
And then when we left, I had the first panic attack of my entire life. I have them regularly now. I've learned how to live with them and get through them, but I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. I was like everybody on the airplane, every single stewardess was like around me trying to attend to me. My family was looking at me like they had no idea what was going on with me. And it was just like the meltdown of all meltdowns. And I realized now looking back, that was a death for me, like leaving all these people that I loved, not knowing if I'd ever see them again. It touched that adoption wound, that wound of I'm losing something again.
Yeah.
And I was
That
processing it just
maternal
completely
piece.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
so fascinating that you were so attached to Adaya and then you had to leave her behind. And it hit on, as you said, the root of some of your feelings of potential abandonment. Christy said she always lived with curiosity about her birth mother, scanning crowds for faces that might look like her own. In high school, she fantasized in her ghost kingdom that her birth mother had gotten pregnant by some famous rock star, and that's why they couldn't keep her. Christy was romanticizing the reasons she was placed for adoption. At a point of challenging the norms in her life, Christy was impacted by a program abroad that broke her.
I graduated high school, and most people in the Mormon church, when they graduate, the men go on missions. And the girls aren't required to, but many do. And I wasn't going to go on a mission. I had left the church for the first time at that point, and it wasn't really resonating with me. And I was being really reactive and rebelling quite a bit. I was quite a difficult teenager once we returned from Brazil. I think everything kind of went sideways for me. And I was just trying to find myself. And so they decided, they had met some woman, or I don't know who it was. I don't know how it came to them, but they had heard of a program that was called OSO. And it's a program where you can go and volunteer time in orphanages. And so they had found an orphanage in Ecuador for me to go in. And the way they see it, and we've talked about it now, is they thought of this as like my mission. It was like something I could do to go serve. It wasn't religiously affiliated. And that's what I was expressing I didn't want. And I see that, and what a blessing and what a great thing to go through. But as an adoptee, I was receiving and experiencing that very different. I think I was very much in the fog, and then going and living in an orphanage and serving these young children. I was breaking. Like, I think a lot of things that I had pushed down and questions I never had really allowed myself to ask were arising. And I was supposed to be there for 3 months. I made it a week. I was with these newborns, and you can't hold them. There's 2 nuns that watch them overnight. And so there was like 30 different newborns. And I specifically asked to be at the newborns. Again, I was adopted as a newborn, definite curiosity. And so we would go in and we'd have to hold their baby bottle in their mouth and just roll them over and burp them. Like, we were not allowed to pick them up. We weren't allowed to offer them love and I would ask, I'd say, why? And they said, well, because there's only 2 nuns at night and it's just not possible for them to give that kind of attention to this many kids. And so you're basically training them not to need it. And
Wow.
the whole experience for me, I had a boyfriend I had left at the time. I had just graduated high school. I'd never been away from my family. I was all alone. I was spiraling. So it was at the time where you had like a printed boarding pass.
Uh-huh.
And I went to a travel agency and I turned mine in and said, I need to change my flight. I'm returning home. And I called my parents and said, I'm coming home next week. And they said, no, you're not. We paid for this. You're staying there for an hour. I was like, oh, well, I hate to tell you, like, I'm holding the boarding pass. Like, I'm coming home. And so I came home and everything just went sideways for me. My mom had made my room an office for her. I think planning on me maybe going to college, or I don't know what my next chapter was going to be. But I then came home and was like, oh, I don't have a bedroom. So just a lot of things that maybe I could have been more generous in understanding what she was trying to do, but really took the wrong way.
Sure,
We've had
yeah.
conversations that have healed that, but I really felt rejected. I felt like I didn't have a place. And so I went to my dad and I said, I kind of just fell into it, said, nobody's ever really loved me, even my birth mom. My birth mom left me. I lost everybody in Brazil. You guys don't get me. And it was just like this poor me moment of just crying.
Yeah.
And in that moment, my dad said, she did love you. And I've seen her before. Like, I even saw her when she was pregnant with you. And I'd never heard the story. And so, immediately my ears perk up. I'm like, wait, tell me more. And so he told me that when my uncle had come to him and said, there's a baby that's going to be placed for adoption, this woman I know is placing, I would love it to go to you and my sister. My dad wanted to see her. And so my birth mom was in my uncle's office going over adoption type things one day. And my dad showed up and held the door for her. She was there and he held the door. So him fully knowing this is the woman who's carrying my child. And she has no idea, never seen my dad, doesn't remember this interaction, anything. Now she says she remembers him coming in a room, a man one time, and like getting files and like staring at her. Like he was like looking, acting like he was looking for something.
Really? Wow.
And it was him seeing her. And he
Yeah.
told me this moment, like this story, that she had another boy with her. And that's hit me where I was like, she had another kid. So she kept somebody, but not me. So again, just kind of confused. But then my dad saying how beautiful she was and how much we looked alike. And again, excitement and like, what? And so after hearing these things, I was like, I need to know who this person is.
Oh my gosh, what a story.
Yeah.
Wow. That you've never, ever heard before,
No.
but you now know that your adoptive father has been in the room with your birth mother, has seen one of your siblings,
Mhm.
knows what she looks like. That's absolutely incredible. I could see how that would have really been jarring, right?
Yeah.
To go from nobody knows anything to, oh no, I've held the door for her. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what
So at
happened?
that point forward, it only took me maybe a month to find her after that. Like as adoptees, and especially if you can get a scent of something,
Oh,
you just
yeah.
get on. I reached out to my adoptive uncle and he was not forthcoming with information, which he knew her. He lived next to her. He knew the family last name. He knew all that. But I think a lot of loyalty to my mom and maybe some worries because he had seen my birth family's struggles they had. I think had some concerns of me reconnecting with that and where it might lead me. And I understand that and I respect that, but there's that ache to know just was
Yeah.
eating away at me. And so my dad, I just am so grateful that he was so honest with me. I mean, he told me the name he knew of her at the time. Obviously, being a woman, her name had changed. But I went down to the hospital thinking naively, like, if I know this name, if I have a key piece of information, they're gonna be like, oh, well, she already knows. We'll give
Yeah.
her the information. I don't know, just young. And I was just I wasn't even 18 yet. I graduated and I didn't turn 18 until July. So I was still 17 when all this was happening. I'd already gone to Ecuador. I'd come home, not even 18 yet. I find all this information out. And so I go to the hospital and I'm like, oh, yeah, I was born here 17 years ago. My mom's name was this. And this nurse was so sweet. She looked at me. She goes, hon, we can't give you any of that information. And she said, but if you know her name, marriage records are public. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And so I went and I just started calling the marriage registry or whatever of Utah. And I just said, I was born in 83. I need to know of a marriage between 82 and 83 with this woman's name. And they said, oh yeah, she was married to a man with this name. And I just opened the white pages, but I just opened the phone book and just started going down names. And he lived not even 20 minutes from my house. And so I called
Wow.
and said, were you married to this woman at this time? And they confirmed it. And I said, so are you my dad? He said, no, I'm not. And I'll get you in touch with her. And so this was on July 3rd. And the next day I drove up and met her July 4th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
20 days shy of me turning 18, all this happened.
Wow. So you called the home of, what was it, her ex-husband?
Which was the man that she went home to and said, get me pregnant right away. So he ended up he's the father of my brother that was conceived 4 months after I was born.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So you drove up to her, but let's get back for a moment. Let's go back to your first conversation with her. So he has connected you with her. Did you call her? Did she call you? How
I
did this
called
first-
her. It's funny because I had heard that she lived in Texas at one point. And so when I was looking for her, before I made the connection to him, I was literally calling everybody with her name in Texas that I could find.
Yeah.
And so many people were kind. They answer the phone and say, oh, hon, no, that's not me. I don't know. And then this one woman, I remember going, hon, maybe she doesn't want you to find her. And I just hung up right away. I was like, click, who wouldn't want me? I
Uh-huh.
was so, what are you even talking about?
You're like,
this is gonna be the
rude.
best day of her life. Like, she's going to be so thrilled. In which I was lucky that she was. I mean, I reached out to her ex and it was his wife at the time that talked to me. And so I was really worried because she had a lot of walls up. I could feel in the conversation. And I thought, man, I don't even know if she's going to tell him I called. And within several hours, he called me back. I was really relieved. We talked and he said, I need to get permission to give you her phone number. So he called her and said, there's a little girl on the phone looking for you. And she was like, Dad, put me in contact. So he called me back and said, here's her phone number. And I called her and she had told me my birth name that she'd given me.
Well,
And
tell me about, before you go down that road, just tell me, you've now got her phone number. You're sitting there with your birth mother's phone number. You've been looking for this woman. What does it feel like leading into this call?
so much excitement. So much excitement. There was no hesitation. Like, it was like not even seconds. Like, I know some people talk about like looking at the paper, having the number for a couple of days. It was like the minute he got off the phone, I was like dialing it. There was no time to process. There was no like, I mean, that's one of the things of growing up that I was constantly told is she's so impulsive. She's so all these different things. I mean, it was just, I didn't think through a thing. I was so underprepared for everything that was about to happen. But it was really good. I mean, she was in her late 30s when I met her. I was 17, so she was 37. She was still raising kids. And so when I drove up to her home, I had siblings just bound out the door and run into my arms, just so excited to meet me.
That's cool.
And it was really nice. It was like a really good reunion.
So pause. Tell me about, you were getting ready to go into some of the facts. She told you things like your birth name. Tell me what she told you on the phone.
So she told me she named me Ashley. And then she said that she wanted to tell me in person the story of what had happened. And so we knew that was going to be the next day. I didn't have to wait very long. And so I just remember asking if the man was this guy my dad, and he said no. And so then who was my dad? And she said, I'll tell you. When can you come up? And tomorrow's a holiday. Can you come up? And I said, yeah, I can.
Wow.
And so my adoptive dad drove me there because he didn't want me going through this alone. So he drove, and it was awkward. My adoptive mom didn't go. Obviously, she must have been having some complicated feelings. So just my dad and I drove up there, and he walked in and he saw that everything was good and we were talking. And so he ended up leaving and just going, but he left for a couple hours just to give us some space to connect. And we went out on her front porch, and she, it's hard not to get emotional. She just shattered me. She told me this conception story that was really hard to hear. I came from, like I said, such a sheltered childhood and being told such beautiful stories. Like the whole state celebrates you. Like really, even if they weren't true, trying to tell me stories that would make me feel wanted, make me feel loved, and being just really generous in that. And she just told me some really hard things, a really violent conception, a man that obviously was unsafe to be around and that had harmed her and hurt her. And so that's the reason why I was the only child out of all of hers that she ended up placing. But how deeply connected she felt to me during that process, how she never saw him in me throughout the pregnancy. Like the minute she understood that she conceived, it was like, this is mine. And she was able to put a barrier, which is why I think intuitively I was like, she's going to want to find me. I just knew, I don't know. I just think there's something genetically that happens in that process where I was like, she did want me. It wasn't a feeling of safety. And then she had talked to different attorneys about protecting me from him. And they said, well, he's harmed you, but he's never harmed her. And so he's going to have rights. And until he does harm her, he's going to get to see her. And she thought, that's just crazy. I'm not going to put my daughter in the arms of a man like this. And so she placed me, which is so interesting because growing up, I would just have constant nightmares of a man coming to take me.
Wow.
And I don't know if that, again, was like something that like her thoughts were imprinted upon me, because I had a cousin sleepover one time where I was laying at night and I would stay awake and I would be petrified because I would think somebody was walking up and down the stairs, and it was my heartbeat that I didn't realize I was hearing through the pillow. And I told my cousin, I felt safe enough with her where I said, I'm so scared. I keep hearing this. And she goes, well, one, that's your heartbeat. And she goes, and two, don't you wonder like why they don't reach the top of the stairs? Like why it just keeps going on and on. And I was like, I don't know. I almost thought they were torturing me. Like they were going up and down, or just, I don't know. My brain just couldn't make the connection. But at that point I thought, yeah, I've always been afraid of a man coming to take me.
Fascinating. But hey, are you familiar with epigenetics?
Yeah. I've been informing myself as much as I can.
Yeah, I'm loosely familiar, but the concept that really got to me was this notion that, especially for a woman, your biological grandmother, when she produced your mom, she had all the eggs she was going to have her entire life in her body, and your mom is one of those. And when she was conceived, she had all the eggs eventually that she was going to have her entire life in her. And so at one point, the three of you were basically in the same life.
Yeah.
And that idea that potentially even your grandmother's traumas or challenges or wonderfulness of life would have been imprinted on your mother and then for potentially on you is the same thing that it sounds happened to you when your mother was attacked and you were conceived. She separated the attack from wanting the connection to you. And so everything that you received while you were in there is that love that you felt and therefore knew. And I've had a lot of adopted people say, I knew she would want me. I knew she would want me to find her. And I think that's part of it, was because the mother is constantly saying, I love this child. I want this child. I'm so sorry I can't keep this child, but I
Mhm.
absolutely want the child. That was probably very much imprinted on you, I would imagine.
Yeah,
That's
I believe
incredible.
so too. Yeah. Well, and even the fear of a man coming to get me, I think that was her fears through the pregnancy. But then also, I think it was my lived experience, which I do love my adopted uncle. I love him. I'm so grateful for the family went in. But I think, oh my gosh, he did. He showed up to the hospital. He got me and he took me to my parents' house. So a man did come and take me
You're
at
right.
some point. And so
You're
it
right.
really was just so deep in there.
That's crazy. I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that. I hadn't really thought about that. You're probably right. That would be what would be implanted, especially it's happening in that same moment
Yeah.
of your biological mother feeling so much like she wanted to have you. And it was immediately after your delivery that this man does, in fact, come and take you and deliver you
Mhm.
somewhere. Oh, that's
Mhm.
crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
and talking to her, I mean, there were some beautiful moments that she told me about. She told me she breastfed me, and that
Mm,
was, like, her way of creating a connection where she knew I'd come back to her. She felt like if she was able to do that, like, I would find my way back.
wow.
And then she said that she like, 'cause most moms aren't even given the opportunity to say goodbye. It's
Right.
just they're put on a different floor. I mean, we've heard all the stories. And so she said, "I wanna see my baby," and they all said, "No, absolutely not. Like, you're placing, we don't do that." And she goes, "Well, then it's off." I'm absolutely not placing her. And she said, my uncle scrambled so quick. And she goes, knowing it's his sister, it makes sense. But she goes, they scrambled so quick. I had a private room. I had a rocking chair and I was allowed to go in there. And she said, I sang to you. I told you I loved you. I nursed you. And then I walked away.
Is that right? That's
Yeah.
unreal. God, that must have been really hard to hear that story for the
Yeah.
pain that she had been through. But I gotta admit, I love when I hear how a first mother has fought for her and
Yeah.
desire to see the baby that she has carried. I've
Yeah.
carried this child for 9 months. You're not just gonna take it away as soon as it
Yeah.
appears.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. Well, and even when I met her, the blessing is I look so much like her. Like, I don't have
Really?
any, I don't even look like the man. I've seen photos of him now. He's since passed.
Uh-huh.
But I look nothing like him. He has Irish ancestry. His last name is an Irish last name. Like, his other kids are, like, redheads, and I don't look anything like him, which I think is a blessing too. I think if she was
Mhm.
to meet me and I was to appear similar to that person, it may have been really hard to meet me.
Oh my
But
god.
seeing each other and us being literally a mirror for each other was
Oh,
like, "Oh
that's
my gosh, this is
incredible.
amazing." Yeah, and I looked like my other siblings, and I just fit right in.
I was wondering that too. So, couple of things. I wanna know about the relationships with your birth mother, and then I wanna go back to your adoptive mother. So tell me, how was the relationship with your birth mother?
It was really good. I mean, at first it was just, I mean, I wish I had therapy to go through it and understand like all the layers. I had no idea boundaries. I had no idea. I mean, I was just going up there almost every weekend to just try to spend time with her. My adoptive parents were feeling probably rejected in a lot of ways because I just wanted her and I didn't want anything to do with being at home anymore. She gave me alcohol on my 18th birthday because I was curious. And that looking back, I'm like, I can see her need to please me and want me to not leave. But that sent me into a spiral for 5 years where I was just completely consumed with alcoholism
Re
as a way of processing, numbing, escaping. It's also something that a lot of people in my biological family have struggled with
Mm,
substance abuse and stuff. And so while I understand I'm a young kid asking if she doesn't want to live with me, she just met me 20 days previous, but it just was hard. Once I did come out of that, we did have a period of about 5 years we didn't talk when I was getting sober because I kind of was just angry. You opened the door to all of this, but then I think I would have found another way anyways of trying it or going through that experience. But as hard as it was, it did give us some unique moments that I think only being drunk would provide you. I mean, there was one night where I had drank quite a bit and she asked me to come sit on her lap in a rocking chair and she rocked me like a newborn. And I just think if I had been sober, we both would have felt so awkward about that. Been like,
mhm,
what are we doing? This is so weird. But because I was in this altered state, it just felt natural. It felt like, yeah, I want you to hold me. I want you to rock me. And I
mhm,
just cried. And so I think, I don't know, it was
mm.
interesting because it was allowing me to open emotions that I hadn't allowed to be open, but I was also running from so much in that experience and numbing so much.
It's really fascinating that it both enabled a lot, but also tore down quite a
Yeah,
bit as
yeah,
well. When
yeah.
let me ask this then. I was curious about your relationship with your adoptive mother in that time, and you've already said that it created some challenges because you were so focused on your birth mother, but then also you, as you said, your birth mother opened this door to what ended up being alcoholism. And I'm curious, how did your adoptive family react to this? Because they probably saw that trajectory of
Mhm.
she's gotten so much closer to her. She didn't used to drink like this. These two things are clearly related.
Yeah.
How did that impact your relationships and your adoptive family?
It was hard because, I mean, it goes against the morality and the word of wisdom for the religion in which I was raised, and so I think if they had more information, I've learned a lot about sobriety. I mean, today I've been sober 18 years today, in fact,
Oh,
from
today's the
alcohol.
day?
Yep, it's today.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
I
I
know
love
when we
that.
when we arranged this, I was like, "What a celebration, what a full circle moment
Oh,
to
that's
do this
so
today."
cool.
Yeah, so but I think they just didn't understand the depth of what I was feeling and what I was trying to process and go like, it was a lot, and so it was a tool. It's a maladaptive tool, but it was one I was using, and instead of saying, like, "Why are you drinking? What are you feeling?" It was like, "Stop drinking, stop." It was like, just the behavior itself needed to cease, and it wasn't any curiosity as to, like, "Why are you doing this? Are you sad? Are you depressed? Or what are you going through?" It was just the behavior was not tolerated, it wasn't allowed. I mean, I came home drunk many times and was very verbally abusive to my adoptive mom, and I've had to process a lot of shame for that. She didn't deserve a lot of the things I put her through, but I was going through a lot. I didn't know what I didn't know, and she really is a true sense of a mom because she's never abandoned me in any of the hard I've gone through. She may not have agreed with it. I mean, I could literally, and this is not okay, but like I could literally yell at her on the phone, hang up the phone and call her right back, and she would always pick up my phone call. There's
Wow.
never a time where she would not have picked up the phone. There's many times that I haven't called her in like depression or feeling a certain thing because I didn't feel like I wanted to burden her with that, or maybe she would attune to it or understand it. So I isolated. But there's never a time where I have reached out to need her and she hasn't responded.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I haven't had that same experience with my adoptive or my birth mother.
Really?
She's very wounded. She's had a lot of her own traumas that she hasn't had help processing. So if there's something I'm feeling that she can't carry or doesn't resonate or align with the story she has, I mean, you can just get cut out. It's just over. And so,
Really?
yeah, we're currently not speaking and it's just over my biological dad having passed away. Like I found out, we talked about it on the phone and she was saying how she was dancing for joy. And I said, I understand that. Like, I fully understand why this would bring you some relief because he's no longer in the world, but I'm feeling different about it. I'm feeling like there's a lot of questions I'll never have answered. And it's really bizarre to me that I'm grieving a person that I've never known and also a person who I wouldn't want to know, who doesn't feel safe. I've done his criminal background. I've seen the things that he did in life, and he's not somebody I wanted to have around. So it was so confusing why I would be feeling what I was feeling. And it just kind of severed our relationship. Like her inability to understand and hold that I could have different feelings felt like a disloyalty to her.
Yeah.
So we're
How could you
currently,
feel
yeah,
that way about a man who attacked me?
yeah, yeah. And I understand that. I have so much empathy for that and for her experience. And I've tried to be so respectful and understanding all the things that she's gone through. And I was hoping after being in reunion for 24 years, we had arrived at a place where she could hold the same capacity for me. And it's just not something that
Yeah.
she's able to offer.
There's something too, my sense from speaking with you is you have some real emotional maturity. I've listened to the words you use, the way I can sense that you process things and that you're intentional in how you process things. My sense is you've got an advanced level of emotional maturity that is beyond what a lot of people actually have. And I suspect that your birth mother probably doesn't have anywhere near what you have. So, as an outsider looking in, I could see how that difference in where you two are would allow you to relatively immediately identify your feelings, be able to articulate them clearly, and put her in a position of thinking, why doesn't she understand where I'm feeling? Like she would have just thought me, not necessarily been able to have processed as quickly and have the same level of complexity to her thoughts that you did. And I want you to understand, I'm not saying that by any means that she's not intelligent. I'm just saying that
No, yeah,
she seem to have the skill set
yeah,
that you have. And so I could see how it would take her a little while longer to empathize with you about where you're coming from versus where she already was and had been for quite a while. That's
yeah,
another thing about it is ever since the day she was attacked, she's probably waited for this day. And so now her wish finally came true. And here you are saying, God, I have mixed emotions about it. You're not saying I don't agree with you. I'm not quite where you are on this.
Yeah.
And even just the slightest bit of difference not being on her same team, it does seem that would be an area of contention for her. But again, because she had waited for it for so long. So that's a really complex situation.
Yeah. And I felt the weight of that throughout our relationship. Like I felt like I was constantly trying to help her heal and help her go, because I have been afforded more opportunities to process things now, because I've been able to advocate for myself. I mean, I have a husband that provides really well, and I've been able to access therapy. I've been able to access different retreats and different things, which is why my entire purpose and career changed, where I'm doing the rooted pedal and all the different things now, is because there are so many things I think that have been colonized. Like wellness has been colonized in itself, where everything you have to pay for, we used to do in community. We used to do just with nature. It was just natural. And there's such a paywall for people in order to access that. And so I've tried to learn as much as I can and then bring that to other people. And in that moment of our discussion, just realizing I can't do the work for her. Like as much as I keep trying to do the work for her, like she's got to do some of this work herself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was just really hard because like she had told me things about my biological father that it created a lot of fear, and I never reached out. There were times where I thought maybe I'd get a burner phone and I'd call just to get his side. I mean, I was so curious to know his side, even though I wanted to protect myself. Like I have young children. It's like there was no way I wanted to welcome this person in my life. But there was like questions I wanted to have answered. And I wanted to verify maybe some of her story. And through this process, she's turned and kind of villainized me. Like she's going to family members and calling and saying, Christy was attacking me. And that is not at all what happened. And so it then brings into question for me, like, how truthful are any of the things that she's told me? And so I don't know if I'll ever really know, because she lives in a very wounded victim state, and she sees everything through that lens. And it's not because she hasn't been. I completely has been victimized. And so unless she has help to be able to reframe those things and alchemize them and work through it, like you just kind of stay stuck. And so like I hold a lot of compassion in my heart for her. She has not had it easy. Her childhood herself was very hard. Her teenage years were very hard. Her relationships with all her other kids are very hard. So even when I met her and I would express to her how difficult being adopted was, her thought was, well, if I could have just kept you, this would all been better. And me being removed, looking at her scenario, goes, I don't know that it would have been better at all. I actually think that whole idea of you've been given more, like I indeed was given quite a bit better life. But I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I was sad and I was missing her. And so then it's like on one side, I have my adopted family going, yeah, we told you so. We've given you everything. We love you. Why are you going to look there? And I go and I look there, and I've gone through a lot of hardness. I've gone through alcoholism, through these stories that were painful. I've gone through losing her multiple times in reunion and then not being in reunion. And like right now, it feels like another loss. Like her doing these things to me, the way she's behaving feels like an abandonment, where I've tried so hard for 24 years to be there. And that's just something that unless you're adopted, people don't hold space for. People don't know. I mean, it's like I can tell my adopted family, like, oh, we're not speaking anymore. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's that to them. But I'm like, I am going through a whole grief process.
Yeah.
Through losing this again. And so, yeah, that's the hard thing. And I think actually the blessing of hardship is the perspective you gain afterwards. And that's maybe sometimes the only blessing you get from it, is just that perspective of I don't want to go through that again, or I have empathy for that for someone else.
That's right.
And I do feel like I've had a lot of those moments in my life.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. I appreciate you walking through all of that. And I'm sensitive to that loss, because I mean, in essence, it's like a death while she's alive, right? She's there, but you can't talk to her. So it's really something to grieve. And I'm sorry that you guys are in this space right now, especially with something as sensitive as your birth father. When I met Christy in Washington, D.C. for the Adoption, the Making of Me event, she and I sat in the front row for the very first in-person screening of her journey mate, Crystal Park's adoptee documentary, Because She's Adopted. When Christy whispered the words, "She's my journey mate," as we watched the film, I was more attuned to the movie as it applied to what Christy's feelings might be. See, Christy and Crystal are both Indigenous women, adopted into white families in Utah and Canada, respectively. Christy is an enrolled citizen of the Potawatomi Nation, through which she is reconnecting with her tribe and learning so much about her indigenous roots.
When I met my birth mom when I was 18, she told me that connection. She immediately said, this is our ancestry, this is our lineage. And I immediately desired to reconnect with that. And there was a barrier there because we're a tribe of proving your ancestry, along with having to do like your DNA test and you get a quantum blood thing and everything that the government makes you have. It's proving lineage. And so the fact that my biological mom was not on my birth certificate, there was no way of me getting on that unless she was able to do a DNA test with me. And so for 21 years of our reunion, I was pleading with her to do a DNA test with me. I was like, I will come, I will pay, I'll take you to lunch, I will do whatever. I'll make it as convenient as possible. They just literally need a cheek swab. And her fear is she just said, I just think this is all you want. And I was like, we've been in reunion for 21 years. Like at what point? It just like, it was something none of her other kids had to go through to get their cards. They all had their tribal cards. They all had access. And I finally convinced her after 21 years to do the DNA test with me. And I have a photo in my wallet of the two of us when we went and did the DNA test. It was a little Polaroid they took. And I carried that around because I love how much we look similar. And it was a really beautiful day for me. And I was able to send that in and get my tribal ID, which to me was such a sense of belonging, of like, I do belong here, but a very complicated sense of belonging because the very first question people ask you when they find out you have indigenous ancestry is, well, how much are you? And it's because they're trying to weigh in their mind, like, are you or are you not enough? Like for me to see you as that. And so it feels very invalidating. And when I've spoken to people who are of the tribe, they say, well, that's just colonizers really trying to get rid of us and erase us by saying you no longer exist. And we believe you exist. You have a tribal card with us that says you exist. And so you're enough. And I listened to Crystal on another podcast and I was just floored by her story because it resonated so deeply. Again, having been the only one adopted out of a family and the only one adopted in, I just felt like even though I was loved my entire life, I've just felt such incredible loneliness in everything that I'm feeling. And it's like everything outside is telling me these beautiful stories, which again, I'm grateful to have beautiful stories. But sometimes those stories are the most generous version of it and not really the complete truth. And reckoning with that and sitting with truth has been hard. And so anyways, I reached out to her immediately and was like, you are like a sister and you don't even know it.
That's great.
So warm and receptive. We started having like voice notes and memos going back and forth. She happened to be in Utah, like really soon after that. We met for dinner. And I told her that I was going to go back to our tribe lands and reconnect. It was this last summer. So I had met her before this last summer in person. And she was such a wealth of knowledge because she had just gone through her own reconnection. So she was like, here's what you may anticipate. Here's how they may interact with you. But she was just literally laying the groundwork for me to know how to go through that process and to be able to reach out to her and talk to her. And it just honestly feels, because I did grow up in such a religious family, I am very spiritual. I may not prescribe to an organized religion, but I very much see deeper meaning into everything. And I feel like we come into each other's lives at a certain point to help each other. And I think my opinion is, we laid out before this life and looked at everything and we were like, yeah, I want to go through that. That seems like the human trial I want to try on. I want to go through it because it's going to be hard and I get it's going to be hard, but these qualities that I'm going to get from it, like who I get to die becoming, that's who I want to be. And so, yeah, I'll take all that on because this person is who I really want to be. And I think I looked at this adoption thing and thought, yeah, it's going to be hard, but like I get to pave my own way and I get to figure things out for myself and all these strengths that actually come from it. Although on the other hand, is so hard and isolating, the person you become is like such a blessing. I mean, I have people from my LGBTQ community that I know that are in that and they're like, I wasn't adopted, but the identity thing you speak of, I resonate so deeply. And it kind of just crosses these different barriers with the identity aspect. And I just feel like there are these key people along the way that we were friends before this life. And they're like, and I'll show up at this time in your life and I'll help you. And I'm going to show up here. And so when these cosmic connections almost where you meet them and you're like, you've been such a gift and a guide for me. It just feels like otherworldly. Feels like that to me. It just feels like she came into my life at a moment and had such validating conversations with me. And I was so deeply seen. And then I even told her that at the dinner, I said, well, how do you handle when people ask you how much you are? Because she's much more than I am. So I feel invalid in ways. And she just looked at me. She said, hun, just look at him and say, I'm enough. It's all you answer with is I'm enough.
I love
and
that.
I was like, thank you. I love that. Because you don't have to answer. And it's, again, I do have that tribal card and I do have, and my tribe received me the same way when I went home. Nobody asks you that question. Like, if you have the card, you're in. Like, nobody, and if anything, there's so many people who look less Native than I do because of whatever their genealogy has done in their ancestry. And so it was nice to arrive there and people were like, oh, you have Potawatomi cheekbones, or oh, you look like this, or oh, and I was like, okay.
Really feeling
Yeah,
seen. That's
it felt
amazing.
really good.
I am enough. I loved that because we often feel the need to prove our worth, justify pieces of our existence when questioned by others. But when you're confident in who you are, other people's judgment bounces off of you, which is something Crystal and Christy have built confidence in for themselves. Christy said she was very emotional about returning to the homeland. Too often, people misunderstand the Native regalia, the drum circles, and the aesthetics of Native culture without doing the deeper work to understand the meanings behind every song, every dance, each and every bead on every single pelt, and the cultural significance of everything Native people do as occupants on the land we all live on. Christy discusses the history of Native people's disconnection and the healing of reconnection for herself and her people.
They just want to take, and even people who aren't Indigenous also want to take those things. They smudge, they burn sacred smoke, and they do things not really understanding that, like, these were practices people were unalived for. Like, there was a genocide over these practices. It wasn't legal until 1978, which was only 5 years before I was born, for these tribes to practice their beliefs again and to be able to openly do so. And so for me to so openly reconnect is such an honor, and one that I don't take lightly, because there are people who were afforded that same through residential schools, through other things. And so the tribe themselves are so kind, because as I'm trying to reconnect, they're like, well, many of us are for all different reasons. It wasn't just adoption. It was like, it was removed from all of us, which has added to alcoholism, not only in my life, but in a lot of Indigenous lives, because that was a tool that people were given to them, or like a way of them signing away treaties and doing certain things because they were inebriated. They also didn't understand the concept of ownership of land. So what does this mean if I'm signing this paper? Because we don't own the land belongs to everybody. And they just had no idea how they were being manipulated. And then it's that disconnection from land, that disconnection from source, the disconnection from community, and just all of the ways that life was lived before. Any drug and alcohol abuse disorder, they stem from disconnection.
Yeah.
And the way to heal any of those is through connection. And so it's been a lot to, when I was dismantling and deconstructing religion, I was coming out of the fog. I was, again, seeing the ways that I didn't want to be part of an organized religion anymore. And then through learning my tribal history, to just seeing how much harm religion has done to many communities, not even just here, around the world.
Yes.
And it's just, I just don't want any part of it. But it's just, my heart breaks. I want to help people reconnect with themselves, with the land that is everybody's birthright. And it's a language we've all forgotten how to speak. And it's been really healing for me, because it's a nonverbal language that when I had to tap into young in Brazil before I could speak the language of just reading energy and reading people. And I communicate with my plants, and they don't speak in words, but they talk to me. And it's been such a beautiful way of learning. And I use it to, I say, alchemizing my experiences. Like, I compost the things. I will cry into my soil, like as I'm repotting often. And it's like something will happen and I'm doing a task, which I don't even label them tasks now. I call them rituals, because it's like, I'll be repotting something and I'll talk to the plant as I'm doing it. I'm like, will you just take this from me? This is too much for me to carry anymore. I mean, they've done so many studies in science about grounding outside. I'm like, it's the same inside with our houseplants. The same thing can happen inside.
Christy and Crystal were both in cosmetology for years before each found other paths. One of Christy's pursuits to find greater fulfillment was a journey into yoga. So, following her impulsivity, she took a yoga teacher training class. Christy was completely unfamiliar with yoga practices, and there she was in a class for yoga instructors. On the second day of the class, she was asked to script a yoga flow, but she had never led a class before, and the imposter syndrome and nerves got real. She said her instructor was very kind, guiding her through the principles of yoga, reminding her that movement in the body is for everyone. It was in that class that Christy began to release all that she had been storing in her body.
So I was already kind of coming out of the fog, but in my yoga teacher training, just everything opened up for me, because I think it's like how they say everything's stored in your body. All these feelings, all these things that I had just repressed, all of a sudden were just coming out. especially hips. If you want to do like a hip opener class and people are sitting there and it's all of a sudden everybody's crying and nobody knows why they're crying, it's because like all these emotions are stored in our hips.
Oh, wow.
And so for me,
Hmm.
we started talking about intuition and stuff again. And it just was bringing back to me all of these times where I had self-abandoned. Like my whole life, I had played these victim of, you abandoned me, you left me, which yes, on one side of the coin, yes. But on the other side of the coin, like I self-abandoned over and over by taking these external truths. And that was trying to find safety. That's
Mhm.
survival skills. Those are things that I didn't know.
The
But in that
the
moment, just
self-medicating too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And even within religion, like times where I was supposed to repent, like I'd had a child out of wedlock, and you have to go to these things called disciplinary councils, where you sit in a room with 10, I can't remember if it's 10 or 12 men, and you basically tell them what you've done, and they determine if you're going to be excommunicated, or you're going to be disfellowshipped. Can you still say public prayers? What is your punishment essentially going to be? And I had been going to a bishop where he wanted to know all of the details, like all the details of all the things I had done. And me being very naive, told him all these things. And so I'm sitting in this disciplinary council, these other men, and they said, okay, will you tell us in your own words what happened? And I start going into detail because that's how I've been groomed to do it. And another gentleman raised his hand and said, oh, we don't need to know all that, just the basics. And I looked at this bishop, what the heck have the last 9 months of our time been then? Almost predatory to me, like the way he
Yes.
had been involving himself with me. And so my whole body was just like, I want to run. Like, this feels so wrong. I don't want to be here. And the fact that these men who don't know my whole story, they don't know my adoption, they don't know what I've been through, like, they don't know anything, are going to judge me in this 10 minutes and tell me like what my worth is or what my punishment is. And just so many knowings of like clear intuition of being like, this is wrong. And they don't know enough. And then just the external overriding going, well, this is repentance. Like, it's supposed to be uncomfortable and you're supposed to feel this way. And this is being humble. And so like these two things, like, again, being an adoptee, just constant duality of things. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting in yoga teacher training. I'm actually listening to my body. And I'm like, oh, my body was telling me to run. Oh, my body was telling me this wasn't right.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't listen. And just
Yeah.
so much was coming up for me. And so that's where I try to live now, is what does my body say? And what's communicating as truth to me?
Mm.
And what's the kindest version of stories, again, which my parents taught me. My parents have been phenomenal parents, honestly. Could not have picked better people to go to. And through knowing my birth mom, there have been moments where I felt a lot of shame in some of her behavior, some of the things she says. She is stunted in some ages that she hasn't been able to work through. And seeing that, it's kind of embarrassing sometimes. And then realizing I've never felt that with my adoptive parent. There's never been a moment they've said or done something publicly or anything where I've ever felt anything but proud to belong to them. And then so just trying to gather the things I can of, okay, well, my birth mom's a mirror. There's many things there that I also still do. So how can I make sure I don't pass that on to my kids?
Yeah.
And how can I make sure I'm doing more things like this? I mean, it's been such a full circle lesson. And I don't think anything negative about my birth mom for that. I'm not saying that as like a negative to her. It's been her lived experience. Like, it's been hard for her. And there's not enough help for birth moms after placing or for going through anything. And I wish she had that. But now that I know the full picture, now that I have all the answers that I was seeking for so long, like, how does it serve me? What was the point of going through all this? Why did my soul choose this? How do I become the best version of me? How do I empower my kids and I don't repeat these patterns that now I'm very aware of? I have to tell them, like, all my kids, I'm like, you need to not get pregnant before you're married. This is a generational pattern that I didn't even know I was repeating. And I repeated it. And then
But now you're aware of it.
them out, like, just so many different things. Like, when my daughters, when they're dating, I'm like, don't listen, don't seek external approval. Don't seek a man telling you it's, and all those things I was doing, not knowing I was doing them. And then I have the external judgment of, why are you doing this? Why are you digging the bottom of the barrel? Why don't you have higher standards? And I'm like, I just want to be loved. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I'm
it's a
finally
lot.
coming to this place in my 40s where I'm like, that hindsight where you're like, oh, I can see the patterns I've lived. I can see my own errors. Like, I've had so many ways that I've messed up, and forgiving myself through those, and just being like, when you don't know better, you don't know.
That's it.
And I'm ashamed for the ways I've treated my adoptive mom. It grieves me, like, how disrespectful I was, but I was in such pain that I didn't know, and I didn't know how to share and speak it. And unfortunately, it came out onto her, because she was that safe place. And I'm so grateful she continues to be that safe place. She's now been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it's like, time is of the essence that we heal these relationship patterns. And again, it's just like the fear of losing her now. It's like, I've had something so good my whole life that I I wasn't grateful for. Because you're told all the time, are you grateful? Are you grateful? And it's just, you're so mad about hearing this. But then to come to this point, you're like, wow, I really am.
Yep.
And like, how do I let them know that? And how do I help other parents attune to their children better and not pathologize the things they're going through? Because, man, they're going to hit those teenage years and it might be rough. Like my kids, I am their mom and I'm raising them, and teenage years are rough for anybody. Like it's a whole identity thing. And then you layer on the adoption. And it's, I don't know, just how do we help kids through it to understand themselves more versus alienating them more and making them silence themselves? Because it's taken me 40 years to even have the strength to stand up and say anything. About anything I've gone through, just a fear of nobody understanding. I mean, even in my bouts of depression, I've reached out to people and been like, I'm drowning, I'm depressed, and nobody does anything. And I would then ride upon that, well, they don't care about me. And I don't think that's it at all. I think there's so much of discomfort. People don't know how to hold things. They're like, oh, this is messy. I don't know. And it has nothing to do with me. It's their capacity.
It's also what they're going through. I got my own stuff going on. I can't take this on too. So there's a lot in there. Yeah, it's true. Wow, Christy. Woo, you have been through a lot. But it's like I said before, you have an emotional intelligence about you that is really powerful. You've got analytics to how you think through things. You've got a spirituality to how you analyze what is or is not happening. And I think it's incredibly valuable for how you're going to guide your children and heal yourself and recognize what you can do with what's left of the relationships you have. And I'm really thankful to you for coming here to share your story. I appreciate it. This has been
thank
really
you for
amazing.
listening and creating such a safe space and for all your kind words. And like you just, the minute I met you, like you were so warm, and you've done, I mean, hundreds of these episodes. I've been listening, but I mean, you've developed your own sense through all of this too. It's really helping provide words to like a pre-verbal trauma for many people, and myself included, and making me, I'll speak for myself, but making me feel like there is space for me to speak up and the people who do care. And that's deeply healing in itself. So I'm really grateful to you for creating these spaces and for having the space in yourself to do this for other people. And it's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot of emotional labor for you to go through and to hear these, because it probably brings up within you like the ways you resonate and what you went through all the time.
Although the empathy, I think I may have told you or some other folks when we were in DC, like that prior recording that I had done was the most crying I have ever done with a guest ever. And there's a lot of emotion in there, but I've also learned very much to empathize with people. And this is how we started our conversation, right? That we all come from different backgrounds. We are genetically made up different. We are different genders and different everything. But we all share this experience of adoption. And I think we have a lot of room to empathize with each other.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you were here to share your story, because the same way that Crystal reached out and she has impacted you, your story is going to impact somebody else. And I'm really glad that you were here to do it. So thank you.
Thank you. I know that's the one thing I think if I could tell anybody, it's like just controlling the stories that we tell ourselves. There are so many disempowering versions of what we've gone through. And while some of them may be true, like what is the most empowering version we can tell ourselves now to regain our own power and our own control and reshaping and like taking charge of the narrative, right? Like when we're a kid, we aren't in charge of that, but now we are. And I think that's probably one of the most healing parts of what we can do for ourselves.
I agree. Thank you, Christy. It's been wonderful to have you here. Take care, all right?
Okay, you too.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's me. Christy grew up loved after being prayed for, periodically behaving as if she were ungrateful for her adoptive family, but grew to understand that her adoptive family loves her deeply and she is grateful for the life she leads today. Meeting her birth mother was an eye-opening experience for Christy as she learned of the trauma the woman endured when she was conceived and the hurt she lived with her whole life. I found it tough to hear that the attacker's passing caused such a rift between Christy and her birth mother, one celebrating the end of her attacker's life, the other mourning the fact that she will never know the man who, for better or for worse, is part of her DNA. Reflecting on our conversation, Christy emailed me the next day with messages that hit on themes of our conversation. She said, "I wanted to clarify something I said about feeling embarrassed by my birth mom. What I really meant was that I struggle with her behaviors and with my conception story, not with her worth as a person. I have deep compassion for her trauma and the ways she's been victimized, while at the same time wishing she could embody more emotional maturity at this stage in her life. Christy told me that the 21 painful years that her birth mother refused to do DNA were because her birth mother had a fear of losing Christy somehow. Another part of her follow-up message to me said, "I wish I had shared how I see epigenetics through the lens of native wisdom. Even if I don't fully understand the science, I carry the understanding that we are connected to 7 generations before us and 7 generations after us. Their wounds and resilience live in us, and what we heal in ourselves ripples forward. That truth has been deeply grounding in my journey." I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Christy's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really? Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to check out whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience to learn more about the release of my next book based on the stories here on the show.
I think everybody gets to a certain point in their journey where you feel like it's important to share your story, but there's so much fear, right? There's always fear of even sharing your truth. Like your truth may not be someone else's truth.
Yeah, that's right. But
So,
one of the great things about this adoptee space, though, is that there's a whole lot of acceptance for that, right?
mhm.
That we recognize that we have our differences. We're male, female, black, white, different parts of the country, transracial, interracial. We know all of these different factors can weigh in on adoption. And I think that's part of what makes this space unique is we've all come to accept that our stories are so different because
Mhm.
we ourselves are different.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of acceptance, forgiveness, empathy that I think is really powerful here. So you're in a safe space. You're good to go.
Thanks.